Hello! Welcome back to another in our ongoing series of ancient history boring lectures. This one is cleverly titled After the Bronze Age because it takes place after the collapse of the Bronze Age. We will talk about a period roughly from 1000 to about 700 BCE located in and around the Near East, specifically focusing on two smaller groups, the Phoenicians and the Hebrews. As we all know by now, I hope, the Bronze Age was a time of powerful kingdoms linked through marriage and trade. The kingdoms of Egypt and the ones in the region of Mesopotamia, as well as modern-day Turkey and ancient Greece. Here, incidentally, is the ancient location of Troy, the place of the Trojan War. We had also talked about the collapse of the Bronze Age through a variety of factors: drought, climate change, the collapse of trade networks, and the invasion of many different groups, some of whom go by the title the Sea Peoples, shown here in blue, right, who caused the collapse of the northern kingdoms and the weakening and the end of the Middle Kingdom in Egypt. Obviously, with the collapse and shrinking of these larger Bronze Age empires, smaller, localer groups could emerge. We will be talking about two. There are many of them. Most of them leave some record, some of them leave no record, but we will be talking specifically about two right in the Middle East region in this area. At the time, no one would have realized that these two small groups out of many after the collapse of the Bronze Age would have had a tremendously outsized and influential effect on the history of the world. They are the Phoenicians and the ancient Israelites, or Hebrews, both located right along this region in the modern-day countries of Syria and Israel, which are, of course, still in the news today. First, the Phoenicians, located in this strip of land right along here. They are traditionally called the Canaanites in both the Torah and the Old Testament of the Bible. Their more commonly historical name, the Phoenicians, comes from the Greeks and means purple people, because not that they were purple in color, like Barney the dinosaur, but that they made and traded in an expensive purple dye. People then, as now, 3,000 years ago, liked to be fashionable. Clothing tended to be drab, brown, or tan, or beige in color, and so any kind of dye was valuable. Red dyes, yellow dyes, as we saw earlier in the year with our dyeing activity. But purple dye especially was bright and vibrant and rare, and therefore expensive. We believe that they emerged as sort of a melding of local groups in this region, as well as the influx of people who we know as the Sea People. As we will see, the sea becomes important to both their history and their identity. Incidentally, here in purple are important trade goods, which again can be seen here. Spreading out from their home region, they travel around the entire Mediterranean Sea, North Africa into modern-day Italy and Spain, as far as the Straits of Gibraltar, trading in the purple dye and cloth, wood for ships and building, glass, wine, copper, a more beautiful and more expensive alloy, and core ingredient of bronze, of course, and carved ivory out of Africa. They also, along their trade routes, established towns and settlements, trading outposts, all along here in green, along North Africa, Spain, and Italy, as you can see. One of their most famous trading outposts is Carthage, on the northern coast of Tunisia today. The later Roman wars with Carthage are known as the Punic Wars, again from the Latin word for purple, tracing their history back to the Phoenicians in their homeland here. In spite of their trade and their networks and their purple dye, their most important contribution was the basis of our modern alphabet. You can see an ancient stone carving with the Phoenician alphabet here, and a modern chart comparing our letters to their original Phoenician ancestors. This is crucial because they are traders. They need a simplified alphabet. They cannot have the elaborate hundreds of different characters that originally developed in cuneiform. They need something easier to write, to transcribe, and that does not represent a syllable or an idea, but is just a sound. Then the same letters can be used to write multiple different languages. So here is the sort of precursor Canaanite alphabet. Its more streamlined version in ancient Phoenician, and its translation into Greek and Latin, and from Latin into our modern Roman alphabet that we use today. Again, because they're interacting in many different regions with many different people, a simplified, streamlined alphabet proves to be incredibly useful and important. And because they're in so many regions, they spread the alphabet with them wherever they go. It arrives in Greece around 800 BCE. It is much easier and has many fewer symbols to remember. And this allows not just more languages to be written down in the same alphabet, but more people to learn to write, because there are fewer things to remember, and this helps to achieve greater literacy. Next, also important for a different reason, is the land of ancient Israel, or the Hebrews. They're known by a couple different names, as the Israelites, the Hebrews, or simply as the Jews. They trace their origin in the Old Testament and the Torah to the ancient Mesopotamian city of Ur, located right here at the base of the Euphrates. This is the home city of Abraham, who gets a revelation, a message from God, leaves out of Ur and heads westward into what we know as ancient Israel here. The most famous story involving Abraham is the story of his boy Isaac. He is given an order by God to go up on a mountain and to sacrifice his son. He is so believing, so trustworthy, so faithful in his belief that he is willing to do so until God stops him at the last moment, because he has proven his loyalty and his adherence to the word of God. In some traditions, he has another son, Ishmael, who is credited as the originator and the founder of the slightly more recent religion, Islam. So both Islam and Judaism, and through Judaism, Christianity, all trace their origin back to Abraham. We have also learned and studied the story of Noah and the flood, and the key idea of monotheism, there being only one God, and the importance of a covenant, being a special chosen people with a contractual obligation and relationship with that one all-powerful God. That identity is reinforced through the story of Moses and the Exodus, leaving out of captivity in Egypt, down into the peninsula and up back to their original homeland of Israel, reinforcing the special care God takes for them, the covenant, and the idea of that you shall have no God before me as the first of the 10 commandments. Here are some of those key terms for you. Monotheism, the belief in only one God. So far as we know, there's a brief interlude in Egypt, but this is the first defined religion with the belief in only one God and having a special covenant or relationship or contract with that God. They reach their historical peak until recently under King David and King Solomon, who combine Judah in the south and the tribes of Israel in the north. They build the great temple in their capital city of Jerusalem, right here, to house the Ark of the Covenant and the stone carvings of the original 10 Commandments. Later on, the temple is burned and they rebuild it, and it is torn down again, as we will see later in the course, by the Romans. And at that point, they leave their homeland and only recently return to it after the events of the Holocaust and World War II. Incidentally, here are their neighbors to the north, the Phoenicians. Fundamentally, the ideas of monotheism, of having a special relationship, of being a chosen people, are developed by the ancient Hebrews and are the basis for both modern Christianity and Islam, the two most popular religions in the world today. This is where they begin and where they trace their origin to the Axial Age after the collapse of the Bronze Age. Thank you very much. The end.